All right, everybody! All right, hope you're having a hell of a morning. Boy, have I got something cool to show you guys. Now, today's video is in part inspired by a question asked by a younger viewer named Leo Ross.
Hey Glenn, I know drum samples doesn't sound nearly as good as a real kit, but I can't afford drums or hire a drummer, so I use samples. But I try to humanize them by messing with dynamics and unquantizing the samples. Do you know any other way of making samples sound better or a way to get better drums? I'm still going to high school and I can't afford too much. Thanks.
Dude, that's a phenomenal question, and it's one that so many of you guys have asked me over the years, and we're going to get into that a little bit further into the episode. But let me give you a little background into why I don't really care for programmed drums very much. Here's the thing, when I started this show way back in like 2012 and put out that video back in 2014 called The Fans Deserve Better, I was ranting and raving about programmed drums and drum sampler places and not hearing the drummer anymore, mainly because the technology at the time was terrible. I'm like, this is coming from a guy who started out on a set of Tama Techstars and an Alesis DM5 with some live cymbals, and then I switched over to a Roland V-drum kit like right in the year 2000. I had bands come in and I'd record them, and the drummers would bitch and bitch and bitch and bitch and bitch and bitch and bitch endlessly about the V drums, how they weren't, real and whatnot. And, they would blame their shit performances on the V drums. So I went out of my way and busted my ass learning how to record real drums. Then I came to find out that the drummers were just completely full of shit and were blaming their own inadequacies on the V-drum kit, whereas we finally got them on a real kit, had these beautiful tones, and they still couldn't fucking play. You gotta love this business. Spend years and years and years learning how to record live drums, get these amazing tones, and the drummers still fuck it up because, well, let's face it, they're drummers. Now, here's the thing. I know a lot of you guys just simply can't record real drums for whatever reason. You live in apartments, you live with your parents, you just can't make a lot of noise. And even if you do have the space and the soundproofing to record real drums, you got to buy the cymbals, you got to buy the drums, you got to do maintenance on them, put on new skins, and then you've got to buy the mics as well. And not to mention the interface and all the processing that goes along with it. And that's a pretty serious expense. Now, one of my favorite phrases is, it's far easier to sit around it and bitch. We even put that on a t-shirt a couple years ago and sold an awful lot of them. That was an awful lot of fun. And when it comes to drum samples, I've complained an awful lot because usually they're easier to spot than a fart in a car because they just stick out so bad. They're too perfect. They're too predictable. It's like, and just so fucking artificial sounding compared to a real drum. So you can sit around and complain, or you can do something about it. And I got together with a bunch of my friends and we decided to do something about it. And we've been working behind the scenes for the last several years to try and bring you guys a better product. We've had a couple of false starts, we've gone down the wrong path, but we finally got something ready today. Check this out. Pretty wicked drum performance, right? Except it wasn't actually a drum performance. That was all programmed out in MIDI and run through our new plugin called Extinction Level Event. Okay, we're going to move over to the desktop here, and I'm going to take you through this and show you exactly what's going on and how you can program your drums just a little bit differently to make them sound a little more like a real drummer. Alrighty then, we're over at the desk, and yeah, we're looking at something here you thought you'd probably never see on this show, and that's programmed MIDI drums. And yeah, what you guys just heard there, that mix, that was a Contact Player. That's our new plugin called Extinction Level Event, and we went to extreme lengths to try and get some realism into programmed drums because, you know, I've heard it so many times. It's like you can hear it so much, especially on Monday Mix Reviews. I'm like, okay, program kit. Okay, sometimes we'll get the question, is that real? Is that not? But a lot of times it really sticks out. So I got together with a bunch of my friends and we all got together and worked really hard on this over the last several years. And this is what we've come up with. I've been wanting to tell you guys about this for ages. I've been hinting about it on Monday Mix Reviews forever. Like, you guys are going to like what's coming. You guys are going to like what's coming. And yeah, here it is. I mean, yeah. Now, what we're listening to here isn't the exact mix that I showed you guys in the video. That's a little bit more advanced. What I figured I'm going to do with this is kind of break this up into a series because I started shooting and I'm like, holy fucking crumbs balls, there's just too much information to take in here. I'm going to need to break this up into a couple of episodes. So I'm going to be doing kind of a little mini series on programming drums and making them sound a little bit more realistic. And so this is the first part here. It's like working, you know, with some presets and one thing. The second part, I'm going to show you guys how to break the kit out into its various elements and mix it like you would just like a real kit. And in the video mix there, that's what I was showing you guys. And then the third part is going to be how to approach a V-drum mix and make it sound more realistic as well. So there's a lot to unpack here. And again, it all comes back to that interview I did with Paul Wani there a couple of years ago when we talked about mixing Megadeth Peace Cells. He says, yeah, we had some rudimentary samples on there. I'm like, oh, you got to be fucking kidding me. You mean this whole time I've been mixing on hard mode? You know, I really learned how to do the absolute best job I could on recording real drums and not relying on samples. And then I found out one of my favorite records ever, one of my favorite drum sounds ever, had some samples blended in. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay. You know, that's just like one of the life tends to kick you in the nuts every now and then. That was one for me. But it's opened me up to a bunch of different things, and that being, okay, great. Maybe we can try and make things a bit better. The truth is, though, we've been working on a version of this long before I even did that with Paul Wani. It's just kind of like that, just kind of validated a theory I had about this whole thing. And it all comes back to, you know, I understand that a lot of you guys just simply do not have the means to record real drums at home. So just to kind of walk you through here, I'll show you what's going on. And first thing I'm hearing is I want to hear the kick come up a little bit. We got a bunch of different presets here. We've got, you know, this is all just a stereo pit. This is all more about, you know, just setting levels and, you know, looking after your MIDI and that kind of stuff. We got a bunch of different presets here. Number one here is Jordan Beal. Jordan did Veil Maya and whatnot, and he's been actively involved in this whole program, and he's been part of the team and just done a really magnificent job. And he's got his kick up a little bit harder. Honestly, I'll be completely honest, I like his mix even better than mine. I think Jordan did an amazing job. That's why it's number one here. I think this is the one people are going to grab most of, and I'm totally fine with that. Yeah, that sounds pretty sweet right there. Still think the kick can come up a bit. You know, just gonna bring that kick up ever so slightly here. Maybe bring that snare just down just a touch. There we go. That's a little more sub. That sits a little better in the mix for me right there. And I can come down just a notch. You guys get the idea where it's going on. Okay. I'm going to go back onto mine there, and now that I know what I want, and I already had this kind of tweaked out a little bit, I'm going to bring my snare down just a little. There's a lot of snare in this song, so I can bring it down just a little, but it's all processed. The whole idea is get this to sound good in a mix right out of the box with minimal dicking around. All you got to do is set a couple faders. Yeah, there we go. Bring up the sub kick. Yeah, there we go. Right there. Okay, now what you're listening to was Jackson Ward's drum performance in those videos, and we actually translated it into MIDI and ran it back through ELE here, just so we could get the most human kind of sound possible. And a lot of that comes down to timing and hit strength and all that kind of stuff. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But I found the single most important thing to make these drums sound real is this. And that is, we go into settings here and we've got a bleed control. This is paramount to getting your electronic drums to sound correct. Because without this, the drums just sound flat. Because real drum sets have bleed. When you're playing cymbals, your tom mics and your snare mics and all the other mics are picking those cymbals up, not just the overheads. And this is key. Because if you turn that bleed off, your drums are going to sound flat. They're going to sound not real. Now, as a guy who's mixed live drums for the last 2 decades, the one thing that drives me insane is hi-hat bleed, because, it's like, oh, if only we could turn that hi-hat bleed off, bleeding into the snare mic. If we could just turn that off. The thing is, if you turn it off completely, it sounds artificial. Let me show you what I mean here. We've got that hiss from the cymbals going into the snare mic, and this is really important. And again, the bottom snare mic, you can hear the kick bleeding in there. This is how a real drum set sounds. If you turn that off, if you go into the settings here and you purge the bleed, suddenly the drum set starts to sound a lot more artificial. Sounds nice. Sounds very nice. But we go back into the settings here. We bring the bleed back on. Go into Shell's mix again. Take a look. It just adds a little bit of subtlety. There's a little bit of that imperfection in there. And that's what makes things sound real. Because once again, real drums have that bleed in them. And if you take that out, we purge that out as it's playing. Now the snare just sounds kind of thin, to be honest with you. Put the bleed back on, and then I'll mute it again. It's real subtle, but it does have an effect, and it gets even more pronounced when you start breaking the kit out into its various elements. Again, I'm going to pick that up next week and show you guys how that works. But this is all about subtleties. This is all about a combination of subtleties. It's not just the bleed. Now, one of the most important parts of making your program drums sound real is they have to play like a drummer would play them. That means, there's a little bit of give and take. You can't just have everything dead on the grid. And you can see right here, it's like some of the notes are a little bit ahead here and some are a little behind. And that's basically how he played it. Jackson's a very, 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 very precise drummer. He's one of the best I've ever got to record. But you look at this, he's just lagging behind the beat on a couple of hits, and the hits aren't all coming down exactly the same, like right here. This is what adds a bit of that humanness to it. People don't hit drums like robots. They don't have perfect metronomic precision. So, if the beat is a little bit ahead or behind the actual beat, if the playing's a little behind and that the hands aren't coming down at exactly the same time, like take a look at the cymbal here. You got a snare hit here and you got a cymbal hit here. They're not exactly the same time. That's how humans play drums. You have to leave that sort of thing in. There needs to be a bit of ebb and flow. There needs to be a bit of flam in the timing, and that's going to add to the humanness because, again, people don't play drums like robots. And that's the thing, when I see a lot of these mixes come in on Monday mix reviews, it's like you can tell it was programmed because everything's just perfectly grid aligned, and it's like, oh, come on. Who are you trying to kid? Drummers do not play like that. R2-D2 is getting a hell of a workout. The thing is, you can make it sound okay. I think we missed a snare hit there. I think something got erased there actually. So that's been driving me nuts. Let me just oh. Okay, yeah, we're just gonna move that here because I wanted that. And again, I don't want it like perfectly right on. So what we'll do is I'll just tweak that up. Yeah, that sounds a little bit better. That's kind of pissing me off though. Again, that's like right on there. So what I want to do is write this. Okay. And then hit H. I just want to humanize that a little bit. There we go. Bam. And this is something that's really cool about Reaper is you can humanize the notes, just select the notes. You can change up the timing, how far you want that to go. And your velocity as well. We can randomize that. And there's a bit of a timing bias as well. Timing bias is here. We're just going to screw up the timing ever so slightly. Hit OK there. And it's just a minor imperfection. It doesn't have to be anything insane. As long as we're just not coming down at the exact same time as that floor tom, we should be good to go here. Yeah, they're just slightly out of timing with each other. And that, again, is how the human drummer plays. The other thing you got to remember when you're programming your drums is, make sure he doesn't have 6 appendages, okay? He's got 2 feet and 2 hands. That's it. So make sure that whatever he's hitting with this hand and this hand is the maximum he's hitting. Maybe a kick drum or whatnot, but you can't have him coming down on a crash, a snare, and a second crash at the same time as well. That sort of thing. Or if he's over on the ride here, he's either going to be on the hat, the snare, or the other crash, maybe over here once in a while, but not all at the same time. Just make sure you don't make him sound like he has 3 hands, because that just doesn't work. And again, back on the bleed thing there, I mean, like, this is the thing. We, as engineers, we've been trying to get rid of it for ages, but if you get rid of it completely, then it starts to fall apart. Then it starts to sound fishy. It kind of reminds me of like when, we made the big shift from analog to digital recording. A few people are saying, oh, it sounds brittle. It sounds brittle. I'm like, yeah, it's a little too precise. So that's why we got into, the old school mic preamps and tape emulators and that kind of thing to bring some of that analog imperfection back in, because it turns out some of that stuff's really good. And again, I'm not talking about, huge amounts of any of this. I'm talking about moderation. And I think that's one of the big problems with a lot of modern metal, is because people forgot how to do moderation. It's just one extreme or the other. I see a lot of guitar players, they'll timeline all their playing and whatnot. I'm like, what the hell for? You're not making the music better. You're really not, It's like, it might be correct, but it's not artistically better. That's the problem there, and it starts to sound stale, and a little imperfection goes a very long way. And again, if you're in a Reaper, let's see what we got. We've got these, let's take a look at these cymbal hits right here. Right here. If you're a Reaper guy, just hit, what you can do is you can actually just select, a whole bunch of hits here, and we hit the old H button, and we can play with the timing. We have it all over the place. We will just mess that up a little bit. Play with the velocities a little bit. If you check down here at the bottom of the screen, it's playing with that a little bit. And we're going to play with that a little like so. And bam, there we go. Check that out again. See, it's kind of stumbling like a drummer would. Okay, I don't think I want to go quite that far. This Jackson really did nail it, and I don't want to mess with his performance. Again, it's all about not going to extremes. It's all about finding the happy medium. Find the moderate part that works from between one setting and the next. You want to find that Goldilocks zone where that stuff's going to work better for you. Just simply hit the H button, dial it in, and maybe just take the timing to say 3% here, and we'll do 10% velocity. Let's see what we get. See if that's possible. There we go. It's really that simple. Can you hit the H button? Yes. There you go. And that's the other thing. Not all drummers don't always, hit where they're supposed to. See, these are all rim shots here. And we don't want to do that. Let's just grab that. Let me just move this down. And we just kind of do a couple random snare hits here, like center hit instead of the rim shot. Let's see what we get here. Because when drummers are playing, they're not always hitting rim shots all the time. So, sometimes they miss it. It happens quite a bit with certain drummers, and that's fine. So maybe just moving the occasional rim shot hit down to a center skin hit instead. Yeah, we got it right here. We got kick, nothing here. That's that's center skin, and then we got rim shot right above it. Then you got a side stick. So... And then that's got a bunch of different samples and whatnot, so not everyone's the same, but if you just randomize those center shots a little bit too, it sounds like the drummer's just kind of missing, kind of makes it work a little better. And that's basically all there is to it. And then, if you want, you can take this, select a bunch of these, and then randomize the velocity that much more. You just right-click it, highlight it. Let's randomize the velocity, or let's humanize that velocity a little bit, and we're going to make that even crazier. Like if we take it like insane here, again, remember what I said about moderation, let's try to 50%, just to kind of show what's going on, how you can like overdo this. And just... Actually, that wasn't half bad at all. Wow. That was pretty cool, to be honest with you. And we just take that, yeah, it's just kind of a little bit louder, a little bit softer. So you can get away a little bit more on the rim shots anyway with the humanizing velocity, that kind of. And this is the thing, when I first played this back, you know, I a couple months ago when we were putting this all together, that was the thing. I wanted that track and I wanted it translated into MIDI, and I'm like, I want to see what happens when we put ELE on it. It was just kind of, we played it back, we're like, holy shit, that really works. That works really well. And if you want to tighten that up ever so much, I mean, like the snare just seems maybe a little bit thin for this mix. Again, you can just, you know, swap out another preset. I'd probably, like I said, I'd probably go with the modern metal from Jordan. He kind of nailed this one with his mix. I like the fatter snare there, to be honest with you. But I like my kick better, so... It's like one or the other right now. But then again, this is where you can part things out and then, you know, mix it like a real kit. And like I said, I'm going to show you guys how to do that next week. It's a little bit more involved, that's for sure. So I'm going to go over the shells and just bring up the sub kick a little more. Oh yeah, and if you want the raw sound just on a stereo output, all you got to do is take the comp off right here and the process, and let me show you what's going on here. So there you go, ultimate raw drums right there. And we got two types of comps. We got a G comp, which is like a bus type compressor you'd find in a large console. Then we got a 76 type comp as well. A little harsher. You know, mine was processed just a little bit different there. Now, I would have brought my sub kick up. I know the guys kind of tweaked it a little bit. I'm like, hang on a sec. What's going on? Why is that so low? All right, so that's Extinction Level Event, and it's on sale right now for an introductory price of only $84. It comes processed, ready to go, right out of the box. We've got modern metal, we've got hard rock, we've got old school metal, 90s rock, modern rock, and big and roomy for a little bit more rock and roll kind of sound as well. Now, what's really cool is if you're a little bit leery about programming drums, you'd like to learn a little bit more, we've also got a combo deal on right now. You can get the Extinction Level Event and Scott Elliott's Metal Drum Programming Mastery. And I wrote this down so I didn't screw this up, for $157. And that'll be a combo deal available exclusively with the Extinction Level Event. So if you want to learn how to program drums effectively and you want a killer drum kit as well to go along with it, go check it out over at Spectre Digital right now. I said, we've been working on this one for the last couple of years, and it's finally out, and I'm finally happy to bring it to you guys. And you're going to see a couple more episodes. Like I said, next week I'm going to be back and show you guys how to process this as you would a full kit instead of a stereo channel. And then the week after that, we're going to take a look at some V-drum performances and how to process those as well. Once again, I understand not everybody out there is working with real drums. And the more and more mixes I see come in, the less and less I'm hearing of real drums. It's actually kind of a rarity that I'm hearing real drums anymore. And that's kind of a shame because I love recording real drums. And you guys have seen all my tutorials, how to record heavy drums and how to record heavy drums too. We did a bunch of episodes last summer as well. Didn't do so well. That's what kind of got me thinking. It's like, hey, you know what? Maybe most guys are recording with electronic kits or just programming at home and whatnot. So we tried to come up with something better. Hopefully you guys appreciate what we've got here. But don't take my word for it. Go check it out over at spectredigital.com. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.